Hi, this is Jonesy, the host of the Weird AF News Podcast, the only daily news podcast in existence. And those of you that have listened to the show know that not only do I present the weirdest news from around the world 5 days a week, available on all podcast players, by the way, but I also occasionally present solutions to some of the world's problems that I cover on this podcast. For instance, this week I did a story about how Trump ordered the U.S. Treasury to stop making any new pennies. And so I wanted to break this down, ask, is it possible to stop making the pennies? Is it beneficial to stop making new pennies? What's the fallout of it if we get rid of pennies entirely? Seems to be a very controversial issue. And I don't know where you fall on each side of this, but perhaps you'll have a new perspective after I present my argument here. So pennies, do we need them? Good question. Okay, in 2024, 3.2 billion pennies were made by the U.S. Mint. That's a lot of pennies. Now, what's a penny worth? 1 cent. Do you know what it costs to make a penny? 3.69 cents. So already it costs like 4 times the worth of the penny to make the penny. Now, I don't have a business degree and I'm really not that good at math. I'm terrible at my taxes, which is why I cheat on them. I'm kidding. I'm just bad with stuff like this, but it would seem to me at the base of it, just a bad business decision, just making the pennies from the get-go, right? From the jump, as the kids say. In fact, Mr. Trump said, as a result of this, the U.S. Treasury wasted about $120 million. Trump said, this is very wasteful, and I agree, and even a broken felon is right once a day, but he's on to something here. Now, the Treasury themselves say they only wasted $85 million, but we can't believe them. You know what I mean? So it's probably close to around $100 million. That money could be used, instead of minting useless pennies, in my opinion, it could be used to do all kinds of beneficial things in the culture. We could use that money. It could be better spent, in other words. Pennies are on the way out the door, becoming obsolete. How do I know? Well, the statistics show that. Last year in 2024, only about 12% of all merchant transactions, in-store transactions, I should say, in-store transactions, 12% were cash transactions. What percentage of those even involved a penny? So you can see already that the majority of us are using digital payments, and so doing away with the penny should be no problem for that. The physical penny. Now, for cash transactions, there's some arguments on both sides. Now, I personally think it's a nuisance to deal with pennies, and I think I'm in agreement with a lot of people. Why? Because if you go shopping, right, at the cash register, there's a little bucket there usually for people to throw their penny in. Why? Because we don't want a penny. We're annoyed that we have now pennies, and we throw them in the bucket. We just jump them in the bucket. Like, get out of here with the penny. I hate it. We put it in there. That's just evidence of how we feel collectively about the pennies. I say all this as part of an overall larger argument to do away with the penny altogether, is what I'm saying. There are concerns about that. Some people argue that it'll give merchants the opportunity to just round everything up to the nearest nickel, but that discounts the other option, which is to also round down. You could round up and down. I mean, that could be the system. A certain number rounds up, a certain number rounds down. I don't think that would be a problem, and if merchants couldn't get on board with that, we could make a law to make them get on board with that if we had to. But again, we're talking about a small percentage of the transactions, 12% last year. Cash in-store transactions. It's getting smaller every year. Now, if we were to get rid of all pennies, right? That's great. If we were to get rid of all pennies, how would this work? How many pennies are out in circulation? Do you know? Well, I'm breaking it down right here. In total circulation, 240 billion pennies. That comes down to 700 per U.S. citizen. That's crazy. 700 pennies. I don't even know if I've handled 700 pennies in my lifetime, actually. But that's what's out there, 240 billion. The weight of that is 600,000 tons. That's very important for something I'm going to present later. So These are the amount of pennies that are in circulation. As you can see, it's 700 per person, and you already can see that, well, I'm not even handling that. So there's way more pennies in circulation that need to be in circulation already. Have any countries removed the penny recently, and what has happened? Well, yes, Australia took away the penny in 1992 and Canada in 2012, and they seem to be operating, okay? Their whole financial system did not collapse. Now, here's a bonus. In addition to the 120 million that we would save any year we decide not to mint those stupid pennies, we could take the pennies that are in circulation now, 600 tons of them, and put them to use. How would we do that? Well, we could melt them down and make useful objects for the culture. Here's what I came up with. 600 tons worth of pennies melted down gives us a couple options here. 3,000 roller coasters at 200 tons apiece. 3,000 roller coasters. That's 3,000 cities that do not have a roller coaster that we could put a roller coaster. And it would be free for the public. And then if anyone's having a bad day, they can just walk to their local free roller coaster and go for a ride. Wouldn't that be a positive? The other thing we could do with them is we could make, for 300 million U.S. citizens, which is approximately the population, we could give every citizen a 4-pound bulletproof vest. I don't know if zinc is bulletproof. That's what pennies are made of, mostly zinc. I haven't researched that, but I think it might work. It might work. Everyone gets a bulletproof vest, and I think in this the times we're living in, that could be useful. So these are my arguments. Should we do away with this stupid little penny? Yes, absolutely. What could we do with the money? What could we do with the materials of pennies? I'm giving you some amazing options here. Will it happen? That is the question. First of all, Trump doesn't have the power to do this. He can order the Treasury to stop making pennies. That doesn't mean they're going to abide by that order. Congress actually is the entity that would make the decision whether or not to do away with pennies. And the barrier there is the average age of the congressman, which is around 60 years old. So I think this is the problem, because these people in Congress are so old that they actually remember when a penny was worth something, and so they're holding on to that, and they're going to. So until they die and we have a Congress filled with people that are familiar with PayPal and these sorts of transactions, I don't think the penny will go away. But this is my argument for it. Maybe you disagree. Write in the comments section down below if you think that we should do away with them. If so, why? If not, why? And do you have any better ideas on what we could do with this extra money? Write that in the comments below as well. And please subscribe to the Weird AF News podcast, where you get weird, funny news 5 days a week.